Hi everybody, and welcome to episode 3. In this video, we're going to be talking about Bitmap Inks for your comics. The reason artists use Bitmap Inks is to sharpen them up, to make them look like vector, with super crisp edge lines. It's a very subtle effect, and it's one that you can really see if you were to take a magnifying glass or a loupe to the pages themselves. But what's ultimately happening is that the bit mapping is removing any gray tones from the line work itself. So if you use any expressive brushes, this is going to affect those rather dramatically. Neither good nor bad. It's just, something to keep in mind as you're playing. So by the end of this video, I want to show you a non-destructive way to play around with the settings, and then ultimately how you can set up your files for final printing. And really play around. There is no steadfast rule on how you're supposed to use this. There's just an opportunity for boundaries to be pushed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my interior art folder here in my project folder, and I'm going to go to progress, and I'm going to grab my inks, and then I'm going to open up my ink lines PSD. So here you're going to see I drew a couple of flowers here, and using two different brushes. Now when you zoom in here, you're going to really see the difference between these two brushes. The first one is just very plain, very clean. There's not a lot going on, probably the equivalent of using a Sharpie on paper. You can see a little bit of gray tone in areas of this brush, like what I'm circling here, but for the most part, it's a very straightforward brush. Now I'm going to zoom over to my other flower, and when you look at this one here, this brush actually has a lot of expression. It has a lot of movement, and it has a lot of gray tones intermixed in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to zoom in here so we can really see what's going on. And here you can see the solid black lines that make the ink. We see the solid white, and then this coastline that follows along the edge of the inks of gray tones. So what we're going to do is we are going to add an adjustment layer called a threshold adjustment layer. And what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to turn our ink lines into bitmap ink lines and play around with the settings. So to get this layer effect, I am going to go to layer, adjustment layer, and then I'm going to go down to threshold. Once that is selected, that is going to add an adjustment layer to the layers panel, and it will affect everything below it. And then when I have that, you're going to see a properties panel that has a slider that goes from 255 down to 1. So what's happening? What this slider is doing is deciding at what point is it turning pixels to 100% black and then leaving the others straight white. So if I were to turn this on now, what this is going to do is this is going to say any pixels that are 100% black are going to stay 100% black, and any other pixel is going to be removed and turned into white. If I turn this all the way up, what this is saying is that any pixel that has any percentage of black in it will be turned into 100% black, and then you will have white. So if I turn this on, you can see any pixel that had a percentage of gray in it is now 100% black. And then if I turn this back down, only the pixels that were already 100% black will remain, and then all the other pixels will be turned to white. So what you can do is you can really play around with the setting to see what works best with your brush that you are using. So if I zoom out here and I show our other flower, you'll notice there's actually not a huge difference. Like if I toggle this effect on and off, not a lot is changing. But if I turn this all the way up, you'll see a little bit of a difference, but not a huge amount. And the same thing, if I were to turn this all the way down, you'll see a little bit of a difference, but not a huge amount. So whether you're looking to bitmap your inks and you want to try to keep them looking as close to the original inking style as possible, this slider is going to allow you to do that. Or if you want to take this setting and adjust, because if we were to look at this threshold effect on this brush, it almost gets a little bit more jagged when it's at its highest setting, and then the line work almost smooths out a little bit when it's on its lowest setting. So you can kind of use it to kind of tweak and adjust and modify or enhance what you're doing with your inks. And the great thing about this is that this is non-destructive. I can turn this layer on and off, and my original inks are not permanently affected. I really highly recommend working this way because you never want to get rid of your original work, because there's always going to be a situation where you're going to wish you hadn't overwritten or permanently gotten rid of something that you've worked on. So this is it. This, with that threshold setting, you have now created bitmap line work. And what you can just do is save this as a PSD, and you're good to go. Now, there is also the option of saving this as a bitmap file. Now, if I were to save this as a bitmap file, all I have to do is select the BMP format, and I can save it. I already have a bitmap file in there, so I'm just going to overwrite it. And then you hit OK. And now you have your bitmap file. There's two big differences that you're going to see here. If you save it as the PSD, you get to keep all of your layers. If you save it as a bitmap file, I would like this to actually open in Photoshop. There we go. You're going to notice that it creates a single file or a single layer. So if you want to go back in and play around with any layers that you may have been put in there, you can't add any layers to a bitmap file. So what are some of the benefits? What are some of the other benefits that you can have with your bitmaps? Well, a really neat thing is what you can do when you set them in InDesign. So let's say I am working on a book and I want to do my book in a color. So I am going to set both of the PSD and the bitmap file . Try that again. I'm going to set in my PSD. Bitmap file. And now let's say I want to print my book in a color. The really neat thing is if I select the image in the image box, you're going to notice that it selects the color that's been assigned. I can change that color. So let's say I want to print the book into Pantone 103. I can just change the color right into InDesign. Let's say I want to print this page in a solids magenta. I can just select it and I can change the color. So what's nice is with your inks, and if you are wanting to select specific colors, you can do that, and it's a very easy thing to change and modify when you are in InDesign. That is your bitmap images. It's a super simple. It's a very versatile format, and if you were working in Photoshop and you are using the threshold layer effect, this I find to be the most flexible for workflow, because it allows you to work and modify and still have editable files while you're at it. So that's basically it. I will see you next time. Bye.